I loved, like, it's got like a tragic kind of story about it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like there's like the tulip mania, which is like the first financial bubble in history, and like tulips were selling for as much as a house. And like the most popular one was the Semper Augustus, because like it has these beautiful flame-like stripes down it. But the trouble is, the thing that made this tulip so unique with those stripes is what eventually killed it. So yeah, it was a virus that created this pattern, but the virus over time eventually like destroyed the bulbs and made them weaker and weaker until it just didn't exist anymore.
God,
So what
is...
made it so beautiful is what killed it.
Welcome to Season 5 of the Drawing from Experience podcast.
Your source of relatable advice for the everyday artist.
We want you to pick up your pencils, pick up your paintbrush,
pick up your instrument, or whatever it is that you create with. Because let's face it,
this world is so much better with your art in it.
Whether you're an artist looking for more inspiration,
or an art enthusiast that loves to hear about the creative process,
you've come to the right place.
My name is Shane Izykowski.
And I'm Stefania Medeiros.
And this is the Drawing from Experience podcast.
There were a lot of positives. This was a very like light and dark conversation. A very, you could hear and feel the light in her still. And I think that was a big thing that I admired about her too, is like, we talk about grit a lot. I think it's with you that we've been talking about grit. And it's like the courage it takes to be able to push through and get a show done under those circumstances, and probably not even clue anyone in on what you could be experiencing. That, and then also having the courage to be on a platform like this and publicly express, you know, like some of these really like personal things. I think that also too, like May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think that the timing is pretty awesome, because I think that it's like for me personally, I always think about when you talk about mental health awareness, it's like I think the awareness is getting stronger in this world, but I think the action is still kind of a question mark, because a lot of us, we either don't have therapy and need it, or we're not a mental health professional. So we have to navigate through this as just people who experience this and have like people close to us who experience this. And I think that the first mundane thing that can kind of get people talking about this and bringing the actual awareness to it is conversations like this. And having that, the vulnerability to open up, because I think that not only does it help alleviate the burden of feeling like you have to hide this, but it also allows others to realize that there can be conversations around this without judgment, and having a built up system of support. I feel like most people are willing to extend like the help for it, but I think that a lot of people are afraid to ask.
Definitely.
Or a lot of people aren't ready to acknowledge that. And I think that those conversations are what make this so important.
Well, you know, one of the things that we talk about mainly is shame in this. And, you know, I've dealt with a lot of shame in my life, so I know what that feels like. And relating to women and the topics that we're talking about in this interview, that is like, it's really hard to know who to talk to about some of these things, you know. And like the fear of the judgment and things like that, and a lot of that is like internalized fear because of how we grew up, or things, you know, experiences that we've had, or we've said something like not even remotely offensive, and then somebody attacks you for that, you know, and you're like, oh well, okay, so I can't safely say this. There's no way I'd be able to come out and be like, well, this is actually what's going on in my life, you know. So I think that's like, it's just really important to listen to conversations like this, and like understand the strength that it takes to talk about these kinds of things publicly, you know. And the fact that this is her first podcast interview ever, and she was like nervous about it and whatever. And but then she opens up so like wholeheartedly in this interview, is quite amazing. So
Yeah. And when I was first introduced to Jenny in an informal way, I was a huge admirer of her work. I mean, when you look at her work, it's visually stunning. You can sense that emotion, and you know that there's something there and there's something behind that. But hearing her story and getting a glimpse of like her on a deeper level makes her work even more beautiful. And I don't want to say that there's anything endearing about experiencing any level of pain or hurt, but I think that when you can see that and you can feel that on some level, I think that is why we as artists, like, this is what makes creating so powerful. And yeah, I really wish I was present for the actual interview. And
yeah, sorry our scheduling couldn't work out for that, but yeah, your presence was missed. And I mean, overall, it was an amazing interview with Jenny, but it was also, there's a lot of heavy things that we talk about in the following interview. And this is just a trigger warning for listeners. We do talk about things like abortion and domestic violence. So if you are sensitive to those things, you might want to, when you start hearing some of her deeper story, you might want to skip ahead a little bit. So hopefully, if you have experienced anything remotely close to some of the things that Jenny has experienced, hopefully you can find some help. And I think in the show notes for this episode, we should share some resources for some of the things that we're talking about too.
I agree.
But on a lighter note, we didn't really exactly do a proper intro. So if you have not picked up on it yet, the following interview you're about to hear is with the amazing Jennifer Allnutt. She is an oil painter based in Australia. She just had a featured show at Bain Art Gallery. The show was called Semper Augustus. You hear the entire story of the show in this interview as well. And I love the theme for it and everything, although some of it was pretty painful for her to work through. And just overall, she's just such a strong human being. And I know she's kind of going through some things right now. And so, I always say this, but I feel lucky that we get to have these conversations and we get to share them with people, because I don't know, just like, it's special. There's something special about an artist, not just the career of an artist, but like the life of an artist, and seeing what we have to go through for this thing that we're passionate about, this thing that we love. And one of the themes that is a through line that you had brought up to me, Stefania, was documentation, and through this interview, we talk about that a lot, about documentation of your life through your art. And I think it's a really important point to share continuously.
Right. It's the idea of like your art being like a physical representation of where you are at presently. And we have this way of incorporating like these feelings and the place we're at into our art. And it has this almost magical way of presenting itself physically. And I think it's a topic that I feel like we discuss frequently.
Yeah.
At least as of late.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. I don't know what else to say besides this interview is just amazing. And again, we want to thank Jenny for opening up and being vulnerable on this episode, and displaying her strength and courage. So thank you. This is our interview with the amazing Jennifer Allnutt. On today's episode of the podcast, we have the wonderful, fantastic Jennifer Allnutt, who is an oil painter Do you prefer Jenny or Jennifer, by the way?
Jenny.
Jenny. Okay. All right.
My
Jenny.
mum calls me Jennifer when I'm in trouble. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's Jenny
All right.
or
So
Jen.
or Jen. Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. So Jenny is an internationally recognized and exhibited oil painter based in Australia. Are you in Adelaide currently?
I'm in Adelaide at the moment. Yeah.
Right. And she graduated from the University of South Australia with a Bachelor of Visual Arts in 2011 with first class honors. Jennifer constructs images which straddle the line between realism and illusionism. In her surrealistic portraits, she explores the uncanny, the unconscious mind, transformation, and identity. Her works often grapple to find a way to visually express feelings and desires that we repress, finding inspiration in dreams, mythology, personal experiences, and conversations. Jenny creates portraits that operate as carriers for her musings. There's unquestionably a drive in her work to tell a story or weave an ambiguous narrative. This is found by the subtle hints in symbolic objects, clothing, facial expressions, or even a small gesture. She uses juxtaposition to consider divisions between the mind and body, man and nature, and reality and representation. The works themselves are often bold figures or busts, seemingly suspended in time with small surrealistic interventions and a deep penetrating gaze. Jenny, welcome to the Drawing from Experience podcast.
Thank you, Shane. Thanks for having me. I'm so honored.
Of course. Yeah. And unfortunately, our co-host Stefania could not be here today. Stefania is going through some crazy scheduling things with a production that she's working on. So, but she's thoroughly disappointed that she couldn't be here to talk to you. But yeah,
me too.
Yeah. So why don't we just get into it? Let's introduce you. I mean, one of the main reasons we're talking to you today is because you are just coming off of a featured show at Bain Art Gallery in Australia. And this was alongside Alex Grant. How do you pronounce it? The Ghosts of Ourselves, Jacqueline Butterworth's The Gatecrashers, and Eric Sherman's The Rare Earth Hypothesis. I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience and just, how did you get into painting? You studied it in school and everything. So yeah, what is your art journey up until here?
All right. So I'm Jenny. So I've been painting for like my whole life, been into art. I've just always been the art kid, I guess. And I've been doing it for the longest time. And yeah, my grandpa was probably the only arty one in my family. So a lot of what I learned from him. Yeah, I went to all through school, I did it. And then I went to university at the South Australian School of Art, or UniSA. And it was kind of like, it was all right. Like I really loved doing it. I met some amazing people, but it wasn't really the kind of art that I wanted to do. They were more about the concept and teaching you how to talk about your art. And I just wanted to know how to paint. And I was really stubborn. I'm like, I don't want to do jewelry making. I don't want to do glass blowing. I just want to do painting. I was just obsessed with it, and oil paintings particularly. So I didn't really learn how to paint. I just taught myself and what I read in books and stuff. I had no idea what I was doing in the early days of painting. And at that time, I was just painting like a lot of dead animals and semi-religiousy sort of. I was really into fairy tales as well. So I still am into all those sort of things. But I painted a lot of dead animals. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because I grew up in the country, and I guess I was exposed to that sort of life cycle, and we had a lot of animals and pets and stuff. I had a pet sheep.
I had pet sheep.
Did you really?
In Pennsylvania? Yeah.
Oh my God.
We had sheep because we had a border collie, and we brought the border collie to get obedience classes at a sheep farm. And my parents, being the hippies they are, they were there and they were like, oh, look at those sheep over there. And the owner of the sheep farm was like, yeah, they're going to slaughter next week. And my parents were like, no, they're not. So they bought them. And
Are you serious?
we lived in
What?
like a neighborhood. So we had like 2 sheep at first. And it was the only time we lived in like a neighborhood where the houses were like pretty close together. All the houses looked the same. And then
Yeah.
shortly thereafter, like we had this little area in the yard for the sheep, but like neighbors
Oh,
complained
cool.
because they smell like sheep.
Yeah.
And then we ended up moving to a farm,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah, so then my dad, I think he bought like 4 or 8 more or something like that, and we had a bunch. Yeah.
Oh, they are the coolest animal.
Yeah.
But it was almost like my pet sheep was called Bo, like Bo
Hmm.
Peep, which is really original. Uh, but like it was just like rearing it was really fun because I had her as a baby sheep, like a
Hmm.
lamb,
Hmm.
and feeding her was fun. And then like yeah, I used to take her for walks with my dog through, and we lived in rural places, lots of pear orchards. So I used to like walk her through the pear orchards, and
Oh.
yeah, she was the coolest little thing. And then I eventually gave her back to my grandpa, and she had like lots of her little lambs and had a good life. So
Hmm.
yeah,
That's
I think that's
adorable.
probably why I'm a vegan now,
Oh,
probably
wow.
because I really like animals. I
Yeah.
always wanted to be like a vet when I was growing up, but
Oh.
yeah, I like animals more than I like people.
I hear this a
I
lot from
think.
artists in general. I think like a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
artists are just animal lovers,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too. Yeah, so yeah, I grew up in a rural area, and yeah, I don't have a lot of exposure to different artwork. I guess what I knew growing up was like Australian Impressionism, like Tom Roberts and Frederick McCubbin, and then like my family's kind of religious, so I was really into like religious art, and then just I love like 17th century still lifes and stuff as well.
Mm.
So that's the kind of art that I always liked, I guess, and all I knew. And then when I went to uni, I discovered, so much more art, and it was really cool. It opened my eyes because I didn't really know much about art at all, but I loved it. But yeah, I was kind
Yeah,
of like sheltered.
I know that this is a pretty typical question, but being that was your upbringing, being sheltered from different artists, who were the artists that you
Mm.
discovered later in life when you were going to university that really made a difference for you?
I remember really being into like Paula Rego, I think that's how you say her name. Sort of like figurative and like kind of crazy.
Hmm.
John Curran, I think it was. He does like really realistic stuff, but they're kind of distorted as well, and like
Hmm.
but they're really well painted.
Yeah.
And then like I think it was maybe like 6 years ago, I discovered Beautiful Bazaar magazine,
Hmm.
and that like completely opened my eyes because I had
Yeah.
no idea that there was like contemporary artists who were like highly skilled technically, but doing really wacky, weird stuff. And I was like, what? There's people out there doing this? I had no idea. Like it
Yeah.
just opened my eyes. And then I started finding all these cool galleries, and Instagram opened up a lot for me as well. So like the internet, yeah. I had no idea there was all this stuff out there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
don't you have a feature in issue number 35 of Beautiful Bazaar
Yeah.
magazine?
I
That's
couldn't believe it.
I mean,
I
that's
was like,
amazing.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
that
did
was
that happen?
such a
Like,
shock.
how does that whole process work with being featured?
They reached out to me, I guess, and I guess they'd seen my artwork. Well, I've been like following them for ages, and
Mhm.
they I remember the first time they do this thing called Submission Sunday or something, and you
Right.
tag with the Instagram, and then they feature your artwork if they like it. The first time they featured my artwork through that, I like fell to the floor screaming. I was like, "Oh my God." I was so excited. But yeah, they just reached out to me and
Cool.
asked me, and I was just like, wow, I don't think I'm good enough to be in your magazine. And they're like, shut up, Jenny. So yeah, they just yeah, really nice people.
Can you
Daniela, who,
sorry, hold 1 second.
yeah.
Sorry, I was checking what the most recent issue that I have is, and I have 34. I don't have 35 yet, unfortunately,
Oh,
but I will. Yeah.
Nah. It's pretty good. What's his name? Michael Hassar's on the, I think that's how you say his name. He's on the front, which is awesome. There's some cool artists in there. Yeah.
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 You were saying Daniela?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, she's lovely. The
Oh,
most
she's
lovely
great.
lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's just such a big supporter of artists. Like that's what artists need, someone to like be on a soapbox cheering them on. Like that's what she
Right.
does. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the way the world works and the way that the way we should support each other is like if we have a
Mm.
platform to be able to uplift other people and help other people's careers or however we can do it, it's like we're the only
Yeah.
ones who know how our thing works. So like we have to do the outreach to ensure that it works,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I love that there's people like that in the world doing that for
Mm.
people, and she has
I have a
resources.
person.
Hmm.
I mean, I've had a few people who have just been like, I wouldn't be making art if it wasn't for these couple people who have been like singing my praises, even when I was making shit art. Like they still like encouraged me. And yeah, I wouldn't be where I am today without him. And one of them, I gotta say his name because I fucking love him. He's such a great guy. Josh Smith. He makes miniatures, and man, it was such a chance meeting. I met him when he was running a gallery, and ever since then, he just has been the biggest supporter of my artwork. And I've had like moments where I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna give up on art. And he's just come in. We've had a coffee, and he's just completely flipped it. And he's like, "What are you doing? Go make some art. Like, go do it."
That's
Like
great.
he's like how I want to be. I want to like encourage people to make art. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. And his
That's
wife is
wonderful.
awesome too, Laura.
Hmm.
She's awesome.
So tell me a bit more about your work. So you have some very specific color palettes that you work in. And this featured show that you had, Semper Augustus, I love the concept for the show. I read the whole synopsis of the show. And this specific tulip is something that is a through line throughout the entire body of work. So I'd love for you to just talk about your paintings, talk about this show that you did with Bainart.
Yeah. So I've just been really obsessed with that tulip ever since I started like painting flowers, I guess. It was, first of all, it was like aesthetically, I just loved the look of it and I really just loved painting it. But then I started doing a bit of research around it, and then I was like, oh wow, this is really fascinating because I loved like it's got like a tragic kind of story about it. It's sort of like there's like the tulip mania, which is like the first financial bubble in history, and like tulips were selling for as much as a house. And like the most popular one was the Semper Augustus because like it has these beautiful flame-like stripes down it. But the trouble is, the thing that made this tulip so unique with those stripes is what eventually killed it. So yeah, it was a virus that created this pattern, but the virus over time eventually like destroyed the bulbs and made them weaker and weaker until it just didn't exist anymore.
God.
So what made it so beautiful is what killed it.
That is just poetry. It's tragic
Yeah.
poetry. I mean, it's incredible. It's
The
an incredible
biological
story.
nature of it is, yeah, just interesting to me.
Wow.
But unfortunately, that whole show was about my ex-boyfriend who I broke up with recently. So yeah, yeah, it was all about him. So it's kind of hard to talk about. Yeah, I've just been going through some shit right now. But I still love the tulip, and I guess it makes the works themselves a bit more meaningful to me because it kind of sums up that time of my life what I was going through and stuff. So yeah, I don't know
Do you,
what to talk about.
when you look back through your collection of work that you've done over the past few years, I mean, I do this. I'm like, it's kind of it's a documentation of my life in so many ways.
Yeah.
You know, I've painted every single ex-girlfriend, maybe multiple times, you
Yeah,
know,
me
and
too.
people that, yeah, people that I've been in love with, and friends that are no longer in my life. And so there's this tragic element, and I like the fact that we can kind of like freeze that in time, and it means something, you know, it means something different to
Mm.
us than it will to the greater public. And also, like, even if it is like a good memory when we're working on the piece, it's sort of, I don't know, there's just this idea of freezing that whole time in place,
Yeah.
and you can kind of go back to that, you know, whether or not it is a good memory or a bad memory, you know. And that's sort of, I feel like that's part of like our power as artists, is this other kind of documentation that's not just like Facebook photos. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it comes up on your stories every year, and you're like, Facebook, fuck you for like reminding me of this thing, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
And but we're doing, I mean, we kind of do it to ourselves, you know. We have this kind of like documentation of what's happening in our lives, and it's
Yeah.
tough. It's a difficult thing. I mean, in my last show at Dark Art Emporium was about relationships, and
Yeah, I remember
very
that
much
show.
about,
Yeah.
yeah, very much about all of those things as well. And some of those are hard to
Mm.
look at for me. Like I can like, I
Yeah.
feel like emotionally I'm separated enough from it now. There's been enough time where I can kind of separate my emotions and then also look at them
Mm.
just as paintings. So
Yeah.
I know it's still a fresh wound for you. Um,
Mm.
but I will say that, not to be cliche here, but time truly does heal all, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, you come to peace with some of those things. I'm not sure if you were looking for any kind of advice
Yeah.
there, but if I had any advice to give, I would say just the time and the space, you know. And then also working through it
Yeah.
personally with your artwork now, you know, and
Oh, yeah.
going through different life changes and everything. Every time I go through a different life change, I'm working on something, you know. And even if
Me
it's not
too.
exactly related to that thing that the big life upheaval, there's some
Mm.
of that in there, you know. That there has to be some of that energy is in
Yeah.
there at least, you know.
Yes. And
Mhm.
those tears are in the painting.
Yeah, sometimes literally, you know.
Yeah. I totally relate to that. Like, I think I've gone through the past 2 years, like a lot of people, I've gone through a lot of shit. And painting is like being able to do something and have that purpose and that drive to do stuff has got me through. I haven't dealt with the stuff, but it's got me through hard times. And like, yeah, I don't know why I just keep painting every day. It helps. And I've been painting on like the floor, on a bed. I haven't had a studio, like in a stairwell. I just keep doing it. And I think it's really important for me to help me
Yeah.
process a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine if you did not have painting, you
I don't
know,
know what I would
how
do.
would you be processing? I mean, you would probably be
Yeah.
forced to face it in a different way,
Yeah.
you know. And so like people use these things for therapy sometimes, but oftentimes they use it for some kind of like escapism, where they're like, this is what I
Yeah.
know how to do, so I'm going to do the thing that I know how to do, not think about the other things, you know. And
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I've sat and literally been like bawling my eyes out while I'm painting
Yeah.
before. And it might not even be related to what I'm painting, just my experience of
Just,
what's going on around me and how I'm
yeah.
feeling, you know? And
Mm.
I think I was telling you that like recently, I've been on my own mental health journey and everything. And
Yeah.
I kind of came to the point where like those emotions were so low or so high on any given day that
Yeah.
I was just like, I was really tired of feeling that way, you know. And also like talking about escapism, just
Mm.
being able to face some of those things in my life and not avoid them has really been
Yeah.
helping, you know. And also like having a support system of people you can talk to about some of those really deep
Mm.
things, you know. Sometimes I will call a friend and I will literally just be like, I have to vent.
Yeah.
If you don't have the bandwidth for it, let me know, and then I will call somebody else. But
Yeah.
I have to get this out right now, and I always feel better, you know, because I have these friends that do not judge me, that they're just like, hey, I'm here for you, I'm here for them. And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
we need that like interpersonal connection with other people, because ultimately
Yeah.
we all deal with these kinds of things at some point, you know.
So true. And like for the longest time I just bottled it up, and I just worked harder and replaced, like, instead of dealing with anything, I just get myself nice and exhausted so I
Yeah.
don't have to deal with anything.
Mhm.
Like I used to like only sleep like 5 hours every night, and I'd like come home from work and play games and get really, I was like a bit of an alcoholic. I started drinking a lot during the pandemic, and then I'd wake up in the morning and start painting, and then rinse repeat, like, because I wasn't dealing with the stuff that I had to deal with. And it's like, oh, I want to talk about it, because a lot of, if I say it, then I think people will see it in my paintings and they'll understand.
Right.
Like so like before the pandemic happened, I had an abortion, and I didn't tell anybody, and I bottled it up, but it came out in my artwork, like that shame and guilt. And I think it was the start of like, that was like 2020, I guess. So it was the start of the breakdown in my relationship with my second boyfriend. And yeah, I definitely think instead of talking about it, I just painted about it to sort of just get it out of me, you know.
Mhm.
I'm sorry for crying.
No, it's totally okay.
It was like the most painful experience of my life, because I
Yeah.
didn't take the pain medication because I felt so guilty about it. And I remember like rolling around in bed screaming, and I couldn't open my eyes. And then like the next day I went to work, and it was just awful. Like, but it feels good to, I didn't think I would still be crying about it. It's like 2 years ago now. But I still feel a lot of shame about it. And I guess it made me start thinking about, what am I doing with my life? Do I want to have a kid? Do I want to be with this person? I don't know. And then I broke up with him, lost my dog, lost my house, moved in with another guy. And that's when I made this show that's the one at Bayonut. I made this show about him, falling in love with him. And then I don't know if I should say it. And then that relationship wasn't very good either. He was really abusive to me. And like he tried to destroy my paintings for the show. And I remember like clutching my paintings, telling him to stop. Sorry, it's all really still fresh.
I am so sorry that you went through that. That's horrible.
Yeah. And I guess now looking at the work, I can kind of see where I was at. Like I knew this wasn't right, but I was just so in love with him that I just put up with it. And it got worse and worse. until the police got involved, and then now I'm safe with my family.
Yeah.
But I lost my job, and he made me quit my job and lost a lot of money. And but I still had a show. It's really weird. Like, I lost all this stuff, but my art was doing okay. So I think it's like the one thing that's like kept me going through all this like weird personal life upheaval.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't know, I feel like I need to share that, because even though it's really personal to me, I get inspired by you, Shane. Like, you have been open about your mental health and stuff, and I feel like it adds a bit of meaning to the paintings, even though I don't want to tell people what they're about. It adds a bit of meaning and depth to them, maybe. Yeah.
It definitely does. Yeah.
Sorry, I just like spill my guts.
Please don't apologize. I mean, I think, I think the bigger reason why you sharing is important is because those two main experiences that you've had, other people experience those things as well. And the more that people hear that this is a thing that you have gotten through, and that also art essentially saved you, like, so like, if that, I don't know if that sounds corny to people or whatever, but like the things that we're passionate about, the things that our souls are like connected to, are ultimately the things that keep us going. And like any creative person is going to be like, yeah, music saved my life, like I had nothing, but I had a little guitar, and that's, I was on the streets playing guitar, and that's how they got through. And so there's so much power in that, and the fact that you achieved through all of those traumatic experiences a kick-ass show at like an amazing gallery, a gallery that people would kill to show at,
I'm so lucky. They're so awesome. I love them. They're such a cool gallery.
Yeah. And just so, I mean, years from now, when you look back on this experience, you already are, but like now when you look back and it's really far in the rearview mirror, that's going to mean a lot more too, and ultimately when you get through these kinds of experiences in life, you just come out the other side so much stronger, and the people, like, I'm not saying that people, it's great to have these experiences, but when you do have this experience in life, it just makes you stronger. And then you're ultimately, like, when you go through such upheavals or traumatic things, especially physical things, God, it's like you sort of feel like you can kind of do anything, where like if there's another problem in life, you're like, this problem, no big deal, it's like it's like the rug gets pulled out from under you and another person would crumble, and you're like, I've dealt with this other crazy shit, so yeah. So I don't know if that's like a silver lining to this horrible experience that you've had, but it
feels like some talking about someone else's life, like, I can't believe it's mine. Like, I was like addicted to drugs and stuff as well with him, and yeah, it's just like it's really embarrassing, but like, all those paintings I painted when I was like high, and it's I don't know, it's just like crazy, and I was getting hurt constantly, and I just kept painting through it all. Wow. I don't know.
Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable and open and sharing that, and like I said, I think it is important. I think it's important for all of us to, when we're ready, to share things, because ultimately, like, when we're going through things like that, we feel like we're completely alone in the situation, especially if we're not able to share with people, but we realize that, like, we're really not, and so surprisingly enough, I've thought a lot about abortion and miscarriages and things, because I have
Yeah.
a lot of powerful women in my life, and I've had these discussions with them about this very thing. And some of them, everyone kind of reacts to it differently, and
Yeah.
it's so much more common than we think too.
Yeah.
But it's because, where do you go to talk about this aside from your therapist? There's no place to do
No
it,
one.
so
Nowhere.
yeah. And that's like, I made a piece of artwork a few years ago, called Haunting of the One Who Never Was. And it was just a really simple portrait of a woman holding a doll baby. And the woman who bought it was somebody who was in her mid 50s. And she sent me a message, and she told me, this was an experience that she had 20 years ago. And she said when she saw the painting, she finally felt like somebody understood, and here I am, a cis hetero man
Wow.
painting this picture,
That's
but like,
incredible.
having this story and hearing it continuously from people, from good friends of mine. And I'm just like, all I can do is listen. I can't offer any real advice over this situation. I don't know how it feels, but this is kind of what came out of that experience for me, and it's like, it's a difficult painting to look at, but she found comfort in that, knowing
That's
that
beautiful.
somebody understands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I think like for me, it's harder because I have a very like religious upbringing, even though I'm not religious, or I'm kind of spiritual, but I'm not really properly practicing religion at all. It's and I went to like a Christian school, so it's just, I think some of that is like internalized, and that gives me a lot of shame, like to kill a little thing that could have existed. Like it's just, yeah, I think like all that Christian stuff is still fucks with my head.
I agree. I
A
grew up
bit.
Catholic,
Yeah.
so the Catholic guilt and the shame
Yeah.
is real, and it
You're
is
taught to
embedded
be
in
like
my brain.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really
It's
not
crazy.
cool. Mhm.
I know I shouldn't be ashamed about it, but I really was. And yeah, I didn't, like I said, I didn't take the pain medication because I thought I deserved to feel the pain. And yeah, it's just crazy. And yeah, I have a name for the little thing that didn't exist, but it's just, I just wish I'd never got in that situation. I wish it never happened, but it has, and just trying to deal with it. I'm glad I can just sort of get it out there and just get it off me, like
Yeah.
let it go a bit. Yeah. And if it helps somebody, that would be really cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that story. That sounds so beautiful. Like, yeah, to be able to help someone, because it really does. It stays with you for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Shane.
No, please don't be sorry.
Creative Conquest.
Mark S. Gagney said, released my line of screen printed t-shirts and hoodies this week. And then in the group, he also supplied some images of those t-shirts. Mark, that is super exciting. Congratulations on releasing those, and they are so cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. Lydia Burris said, I landed a commission yesterday, and I'm spending time getting away from it all this week visiting Florida. Lydia, there's honestly nothing better than being able to take a breather from your work, and I'm also jealous that you're in Florida right now. And on top of that, you have this exciting commission to look forward to as soon as you get back from your trip, so congrats on that. Alicia Zaringo said, I painted a lot this week trying to get smaller canvases finished for web sales. Here's the current work in progress. And then in the comments, she also supplied an image of a painting that she's currently working on. Alicia, thank you so much for sharing this with us. It sounds like you are hustling right now, and I can't wait to see what else you create, and best of luck with the web sales as well.
If you would like to share your creative conquests, you can find us on Facebook at the Drawing from Experience Creative Community. And now back to the show.
I mean, did you paint all of the paintings while you were still in love with this person?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
none of them
like,
happened after.
okay, if I can try to explain it. Like, yeah, so I made all the paintings, and then I think it was the Monday I dropped off the paintings at the gallery. And I remember the Monday because I had to, like a couple of days earlier, he'd strangled me and I had these huge bruises on my neck.
Oh
And I
my
remember
God.
putting makeup on them and a scarf on so no one could see, and dropping the paintings at the gallery with him. And then it was the Thursday and the show opened on Saturday. The Thursday we had a silly fight and we were in my car and he kept trying to grab the wheel and I pulled over and said, stop, we're going to have a crash, hop out my car. And he wouldn't leave, so I hopped out. And then, yeah, he started assaulting me in my car and the police got called and stuff. And then, so in the lead up, this is the lead up to my exhibition. I'm trying to promote
Oh
it
my
at the same
God.
time.
Mm.
And yeah, the cops put me in crisis accommodation. I just had scratches and bruises all over my body. And yeah, and then I went to the opening and no one was with me because I'd been so isolated for so long. A few people came, which was really nice. But I was still like delusional. Like I was on the phone to him, showing him all the gallery show and stuff. And like, I was still in love with him. I still am in love with him. Like, but we're definitely broken up. We're not allowed to contact each other anymore. So, yeah, it was such a weird time. I was like the most happy because of the show, and I was the most sad at the same time. Yeah, it was really, really hard exhibition. So yeah, all the works were about him, and about the other failed relationship 9 months prior. So yeah, so that the opening happened and it went really well. I sold a couple paintings. I was really happy, but I was all by myself living in crisis accommodation. And then I eventually told my parents and they flew me back home to be with them. So because I couldn't stay in that crisis accommodation too long. So yeah, so it was just
That
the
is
most
so
hectic
much.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and then you asked me to be on your podcast, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm just gonna have to tell you, all this shit's happened recently.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for telling me that. I'm going to tell you something that Chet Zar told me on this podcast.
Really?
Yeah, what he said to me
I love
was,
him. He's so cool.
he's the best. Such a nice guy and so willing to share, and also has had a lot of life experience and things. And
Yeah.
he studies a lot of magic, and
Yeah.
he was telling me about how when a magician completely commits themselves to that life, what often happens is everything comes crashing down around them. For everything, their entire life just comes crashing down. And this helped me because I felt like my life was coming crashing down over the past few years.
Yeah, me too.
And then so it gave me like a little bit of comfort knowing that I'm not, my life isn't going to shit. It's actually like, it's I don't know what to call it, like not the calm before the storm, but like it's the thing that happens to get to the thing for you to
evil.
reach your higher self. So like if whatever the idea of success is in your life, in your career, anything, if this is part of that, which it obviously is, it's only like up from here, so like if this is how you felt, like you're going through so much tragedy and loss at one time, in a short amount of
Yeah.
time, then I feel like, unfortunately, it's like when you're going through it, you're like, this sucks, what is happening in my life? Like, I never thought my life would be this way or whatever.
Yeah.
But you start kind of realizing that you do have to go through something, when you are fully committing yourself to this thing that we do in this weird life.
Yeah.
It's
It
not
is
a
a weird
normal
life.
life. It is not. It's not
No.
it's not the typical norm, and it's hard for me to explain that to other people who are not artists, even other creative
Yeah.
people, like people who are visual artists and have to go through the process and the internal growth and everything to get through that, to make what we make and do what we do, and sit in our studios by ourselves and hit all of our deadlines, trying to stay on top of that while we also have our lives to live outside of that. How could it not affect what we're doing, in our artwork and everything, but
Yeah, it just comes in naturally. Even though I feel like I talk about, like I said, like before I said, more universal themes, and I'm talking about like, things change and regrow and die and all that. All of it, it's all about my stuff and my journey. And I don't really like to share that, but I feel like even though it's very personal to me, I feel like people can still find their own personal meaning in it as well, and maybe find their own stories, or it might trigger something for them, and they're like, it might hit them in the chest and they'll just feel it, it'll bring up something, and it's just like, oh yeah, I can relate to that so much. That's what I want to try and
it's
do.
amazing when that happens, when you really, especially if you get to be there when that happens, and then they realize you're the artist and they're having this moment, this experience. I've had moments like that in like museums, where you're seeing a piece of artwork for the first time and you're just like, oh my God, it gets me. How did this happen? This was made in the 1600s, and it's amazing.
That's it. I get that with music as well. Like,
oh yeah.
So suddenly a lyric just is your life.
Oh my God,
and you're
tell me
like,
about it.
or a song, and you just listen to it over and over and over and over again.
Right.
Because you find something of yourself in it. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Yeah. Lyrics are, I
love music.
Totally. Me too. I have a document saved in my phone of like specific lines from songs, because I'm like, one day I'm going to do a show that are based on just these. So like, and some of them are like, a pop song or something, or like something weird, and I'm just like a Billie Eilish song or something, and she has some good lyrics. So but there are specific things that I'm just like, oh my God, I've totally felt that way. So like, actually there is a Laura Marling song that one of the paintings that I did for the Kind of Love That Doesn't Die show. The painting is called You Don't Live Here Anymore, is the name of the painting.
Oh, and yes, I think I know
that
one,
is a line in that song. And as soon as I heard that, I need to paint that, because that's totally how I felt. And it's a self-portrait. I mean, it's very on the nose. There's no punches pulled. It is exactly what it looks like, and but I felt like I needed to paint that,
just get it out of exist in the world and let it go.
I'm like, nobody is going to like this painting. I don't even like this painting.
Oh no.
It's just out there. I just needed to get it out there.
I don't even like give a shit what people think of my art anymore. I just paint it for myself.
That's great.
Like, I think for the longest time I was just trying to make art that people would like, and I was like, I mean, I did like some of it, but like, I don't know, I remember doing this workshop with this guy called Robin Ellie. I hope I'm saying his name right. And I remember like I like broke down when he came over to talk to me, because I was like, it was like 2018. I didn't know what I was doing with my art. I felt a bit lost. And I did this course because I was like, I need to improve my skills. And he pulled me aside, and I can't remember what he said, but like, man, he is inspirational. He's like a really awesome person to talk to. And yeah, he said something to me, and it was just like, after that, I was just like, fuck it. I don't give a shit what people think.
Right.
I'm going to paint whatever I want to. And I think that's when I started painting flowers, and I started painting people. And I just let my artwork be a bit darker and be a bit sadder, maybe. And yeah. And it just went from there, and I just haven't really looked back. It's just, I haven't had an art block since then. It's really weird.
That's
Yeah.
great. Wow.
Honestly, you would really love his artwork, because I feel like you guys work in a similar way. It's like a marathon painting, like such fine detail. Like, yeah, he's a really cool guy.
How do you spell his last name?
Eley. Robin.
Okay.
Robin.
Cool. Yeah. And I'll say that I feel like it's hard to reach that place where you just don't care what other people think. Like, I feel like I can lead with the intention of like, I'm just going to do what I want. But because of the world that we live in, it is hard, especially when it's like the reaction is really minimal in relation to social media terms, and it's hard not to feel disappointed by that.
I know
even
what you mean.
the piece of artwork that I'm talking about, the You Don't Live Here Anymore, no attention online, and in fact, when I was painting it, somebody sent me a message. I had put out like a really short time lapse of part of it with a really sad song, and they were like, "Are you okay?"
Angsty AF. Yeah.
So
sometimes it's like that. You can't really predict which painting is going to be the most successful.
Yeah.
But I feel like people can cut through the bullshit. If you make an artwork and you're just trying to like make it to sell, it shows. I reckon. If it comes from your heart and it's like got a good story or something meaningful to you behind it, people can feel that in the painting.
Totally.
Like in the brush strokes, you can feel that. You can see it. And I don't know. I know what you mean though. It is really hard with social media, because it's like you get freaking numbers that score the artwork for you.
Yeah. And were you suffering
okay.
in Australia from the thing where you couldn't see the numbers? Ash Stark was saying that for a while they were like experimenting in Australia, and she couldn't see the numbers, and she would message me and be like, how many people are actually liking this?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember, like, you can't see them now, but I think I can see them, but other people can't see it. I think that's how it works.
Interesting.
So I can see I can have a look, and if I click on the numbers, I can actually see how many people have liked it, but it does kind of hide it. And I just try not to get caught up with numbers. I don't have a huge following, and it's not like it doesn't beat me up. I know at least there's 4,000 people out there, and I'm pretty sure most of them aren't bots. So I'm like happy with that.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of how I felt. I'm like, my following is
these are actual
whatever
people.
it is, and maybe some of them are bots. I don't know, but I feel like I earned it. I do feel like it's
hell yeah.
Some other people tell me, they're like, yeah, every time I post, I get like 100 new followers. I'm like, shit, really?
Yo, that's a lot.
I'm like, I don't. I'm like, so every follower that I get, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So,
but I think if I had a lot of followers, it would actually do my head in. Like, I would just overthink everything. I'm happy with where I'm at. Like, I'm okay with this. Yeah.
See, at that point, then you need a little social media team, somebody else to post for you, so you don't think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that would be the dream, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And then you could just
You
do
never
the
know.
artwork.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that would be
Imagine that.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, talking about that, so what now after this, having this exhibit, what does the rest of your year look like?
So I've just got a lot of group exhibitions coming up, and
Are we in any shows together? What do you have coming up?
well, there's an Australian one. You're probably not in that one.
No, I'm not. I would love to be though.
Modern Eden,
Oh,
the
okay.
portrait show.
I didn't
You were in
submit
that
for that
last.
this year. I'm so mad.
Oh,
I know. I like
yeah, you
missed
should
it.
have.
Oh man, I'm so disappointed
It's
in
hard
myself.
with like, yeah, so many deadlines and things crossing
Right.
over. Yeah, it's hard to choose sometimes. Oh my gosh, I've got a really bad memory. I've got it all written up here.
It's okay.
Small Works at Baynard. That's coming up. And there's another one in New Zealand with a gallery called Quirky Fox.
Oh,
And
I've never heard of them. That's cool.
yeah, I've never exhibited with them, but the lady seems really nice, and we'll give it a
Quirky,
go.
Quirky
Quirky
folks?
Fox.
Fox?
F-O-X.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
I like
so
the
it's
name
kind
of
of cute.
that. Mhm.
I think there's another one at Modern Eden, and then I got one invited to another one at Corey Helford later
Oh, okay.
on. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's gonna
Yeah.
keep me busy for a bit.
I'll be able to see the Corey Helford one. That's in my neighborhood. I'll be
Ooh.
able to go out and see
I
them.
haven't emailed her back. I need to email her back and say, yeah, I'll do it. So it's
You
on
heard
my
it here
to-do list.
first, folks. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, my show schedule for the year has gotten really packed, and I just got this new job, and I'm just like, I
Oh
don't think I can
gosh.
do anymore. I think that's it. So
And that's the thing, like you don't want to overload yourself, because then you're gonna make artwork you're not gonna be
totally.
happy with.
I know.
So it's always a bit of a juggle, especially if you're with this new job. You must be, yeah, that'd be really stressful. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying not to let it. I'm doing a lot of breathing exercises.
In through the nose, out
Yeah.
through the mouth. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So there are a few other things that we didn't talk about. These eyeball rocks that you do that got you like suddenly got some good attention around and stuff. And how did that come about?
Yeah.
And your reasoning why you started doing them and stuff.
All right, so that was back in 2019, which feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got invited to this artist residency in Tasmania. It's in Queenstown, and it's like this amazing little town. It's a tiny little town, and all around it are these amazing like hills and mountains and stuff. And I did it with another artist called Kate Gagliardi, and we were there for like 2.5 weeks or so doing this residency, and it was so amazing. It was like I drove there. I literally drove around the whole of Tasmania, which was really fun. But every morning we'd wake up, we'd go for this like amazing hike around in the natural landscape, check out something, take a lot of photos, collect things, get inspiration. And then in the afternoon, we'd come back and just paint for hours. And she was so amazing to be with. She's a really cool artist. And it was just such a cool time. And so it's a mining town. So a lot of their history is to do with mining. But I just remember like collecting a lot of rocks. And I'm like, I really love these rocks. They're really just filling up my pockets with rocks on hikes. And then
don't jump in the ocean.
I've always loved I just started collecting these rocks, and then I'd go back in the afternoon, and I love painting eyes. I just have always loved painting eyes. And I just started painting eyes, and I wanted to do something to sort of engage the community in a way. So I started painting these eyes on these rocks, and then like just leaving them around the town. and on hiking tracks.
That's kind of evil. Doesn't it seem, it seems like invasive?
I don't know why I did that, but
I love it. It's great.
it was like little mini murals, I guess, like, or little
Yeah.
mini artworks that people could collect. And then people, I post them to my stories and they'd go on walks and find them. The community would. And and then like I just wrote something and it got like traction on Board Panda, I think it was first, and then like
That'll
it just
do
went
it.
from there.
Yeah.
And like the comments, oh my gosh, the comments online were hilarious. Like people talking about how like they wouldn't want to be on a trip out in the wilderness, seeing these eyes looking back at them and stuff. It was so it was basically started as like a little community project thing, and it just really took off and got me a lot of followers, got me a bit of hate as well, but that's okay.
There's always going to be that regardless, no matter what you're doing.
I remember like Reddit. I have like a really weird last name. It's Allnutt. And people like were laughing about that online too. So.
Oh my God.
But I'm used to it.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. It was a really weird time. I remember just waking up and being like, what the hell? Like I had all this comments and likes and followers and I'm like, what's going on?
Wow.
Yeah, it was really weird. And I don't really like, I still paint eyes a lot and incorporate it into my paintings, but I haven't painted eyes on rocks for a long time since then, really. But I still want to do it occasionally. But it was just like a fun little project that I started there. And and the gallery is called Q Bank Gallery, and they do artist residencies all year round. They're a really cool little organization. Yeah.
How do you spell that gallery?
Q Bank. So the building it's in is actually
Q.
like an old, it's an old bank building.
Cool.
And there's like a full-on safe in there and everything.
Was that where your studio
and they have
is?
all that. Yeah. So it's like they've converted the old bank into just like a place where artists can make artwork and it, like a gallery space and stuff.
So there's no windows in the vault.
No, but that's where all the art supplies and like hanging stuff is, and wall paint and stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
It's really cool. The door is like super thick, like, and you pull it open and it's just really cool. I love old buildings. I just love old shit in general.
Yeah. Well, I've seen that you
anything old.
You had a piece of artwork that was done on like a cabinet.
Yeah.
And was this at Baynard?
It's at Baynard now.
Okay.
I first showed it in another gallery in Melbourne, but now Baynard I like got it in their gallery now and stuff. Yeah. That one took a little bit to make because I had to like cut the wood panel to fit into the cabinet. And the cabinet's actually made by someone in Adelaide, like an old cabinet maker or something, just like a retired guy. I got it off like, you guys wouldn't have it. We got something here called Gumtree, which is like, I guess it's like Craigslist.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just like, people sell stuff. And I found it and I'm like, I'm going to make this into an artwork. I just loved the look of it. And I want to do more artwork like that actually.
Yeah.
And like found objects. And I think you've done something.
Right. This is why I'm asking about it, because I feel the same way. Like, because I definitely have like a connection to like antiques and like flea markets and garage sales. You know, when I was a kid, I used to go a lot with my mom. And so I just like, I call it the thrill of the hunt, you know, so I like going out and finding these things and sourcing them from different places. And it's fun. That part of it is like super fun.
Yeah.
And then usually what I have to do is it needs to sit around for a while in my studio and I have to look at it every day. And it's just like in the back of my mind that something cool is going to come out of this and I need to figure it out, you know? So like, I think that part of it is really fun. You know, and it's especially when they're like old objects, they have history, you know, it's kind of cool.
yeah, you wonder what their story is and stuff. I totally relate to that though, because that cabinet, it was sitting in my studio for a long time, and I didn't
Right.
know what to do with it for ages, and then it took a little bit to prepare it to have a painting in it as well. So yeah, it was a fun little process, but yeah, I just love old things.
Yeah.
I think it's my grandpa. My grandpa has the most amazing antiques and stuff. And I used to clean his house every weekend, and I would just love just looking at all these treasures and things and like old paintings and yeah, just all the history of it. He would tell me about it, and I just loved it. So I guess I got it from him. But I think that's also why I'm a bit of a hoarder now. I just like
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, this could be an artwork. I'll hold on to
Oh,
this.
you have that. Yeah,
And
you have that
yeah,
tendency. I have the same thing.
it's a
Yeah.
problem.
It is a problem. I mean, is it? Is it a problem?
Mm,
Because we can turn those
a
things
happy
into
problem.
profits.
That's
You know?
right. And
Yeah.
give it a new life. Give it a new
Totally.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of like assemblage artists, found object artists, that's what they do. They repurpose it and it turns in, instead of, filling a landfill, they create art out
Yeah.
of it, So I think
Mm,
that's a
I
beautiful
really
thing.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing for sure. Yeah.
Well, Jenny, this has hopefully been a little bit of a healing conversation for you. And
Mm, yeah.
I'm really excited to see what you do coming up for the rest of the year. And yeah, where do people find you online? How do people find you?
So most of my social media is under Jenny Allnutt Art as like one word. And but my website is jenniferallnutt.com just to
Mm,
make it a little tricky.
yeah, of course. We want to make people work to find you.
That's right. I got Instagram and Facebook. I started a TikTok, but I just can't really get into it.
Oh,
So
it's
don't worry
tough.
about that one.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, but Instagram is probably the main one that I use. Yeah.
Cool.
Hmm.
Thank you. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the Drawing from Experience podcast, you should go rate and review it right now on iTunes or Spotify. I think, yeah, you can. You
Yeah.
can review on Spotify apparently now. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but you can stream and download on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, or on our website at drawingfromexperience.com. You can find the Drawing from Experience creative community on Facebook, and you can start sharing artwork with us. You can also find the Drawing from Experience podcast on Instagram at DFE podcast, or on Patreon at patreon.com/drawingfromexperience. And you can find my personal art at shaneizykowski.com, or my personal Patreon at patreon.com/Shane Izykowski, or Instagram or Facebook at Shane Izykowski Artist. Jenny, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really hope fans of your work enjoyed this exclusive interview. Your first ever podcast interview.
My first ever.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for inviting me, Shane. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. I've been a big fan of your artwork and this
Thank
podcast
you.
for a while. So
I really appreciate that.
I really appreciate you.
Aw, thank you. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. The Drawing from Experience podcast is co-produced by me, Shane Izykowski, and Stefani Medeiros, with editing by me and support coming from our Patreon at patreon.com/drawingfromexperience. And our sponsors. If you'd like to be a sponsor, you can contact us at dfepodcast@gmail.com.